LSU, LSU.
Come on, Chip.
Oregon Duck, Oregon Duck. Push-ups, push-ups. Okay.
You got it. Come on, Chip.
Okay, I think I'm ready for this. All right, hold on. I'm ready. We got the timer ready?
You ready?
Okay, we're going to try and get through this. I'm ready.
All right.
Oregon Duck, Oregon Duck, Duck. SEC champ.
Ready?
Yeah.
Go!
LSU is number 1. Lane Kiffin's back in the SEC. Joe Burrow's going to win the Heisman Trophy. Georgia Bulldogs have an incredible fan base. Anthony Joshua beats Ruiz in Saudi Arabia. Ohio State wins the Big 12 championship. Oklahoma wins the Big 12 championship. FSU might have, and I think have a brand new coach. And today, live on the first round, we're celebrating birthdays. And there's the birthdays. You're live in the first round. Come back to us, and we're going to have an awesome show today. A lot of shout-outs and a lot of birthday surprises. Let's hit the teaser.
You're tuned in to the hottest sports analysis of the week with your hosts Ron Dolbeck and Chris Roberts. And now, here's the first round.
First round, Sunday morning live. It's a birthday show here. We're celebrating everybody's birthday on the first round. It happens to be my birthday, but Chris had one recently, and so did Rain Boom Boom on the production set. It's a weird, slow morning. We have our Christmas stuff up, all of it, and we have birthday stuff up. We're going to be talking about a huge Saturday in college football, all the championship games. Plus, I love the fact that we had boxing to talk about. Oh, my gosh. Chris, we were watching wall-to-wall college football yesterday.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So, exciting, man.
Where's your seat?
Oh, man. It is somewhere over
Oh,
here.
You got it hanging off
There
the
you
top
go.
of your head.
There it is,
Woo!
somewhere.
Okay.
There we go. Anyway.
Biggest game yesterday had to be LSU, Georgia.
Oh, yeah. It was the biggest game, but it was the most disappointing game as well, too, though.
Because it wasn't close.
It wasn't close at all.
So many injuries.
Right?
Rodrigo Blankenship misses 2 freak field goals that he usually never misses.
Right. But that offense of Georgia was just horrible, man.
Okay, let's not bash on Georgia. They had a lot of injuries. Oh, my gosh. I was on Twitter, and all I kept seeing coming across my Twitter feed was Georgia talking about all the holding calls that weren't called on LSU. And there was a couple that I think could have been called.
Yeah.
But the most intriguing game had to be the Big Ten championship, Ohio State at Lucas Indoor Stadium, indoor stadium against Wisconsin. Wisconsin goes up huge in the first half, just like in game 1. They're hanging tough. Right. And then after halftime, I don't know if Urban Meyer went in there and kicked some butt in that locker room, but Ohio State came out. We saw the real Ohio State in the second half. That had to be the most intriguing game.
It had to be the most intriguing game, and I don't know if he gave Ryan Day a call, but whatever he gave him, those guys came out to play.
In the second half.
Second half, yeah.
The first half, it was like they were on the back of a milk carton.
I
have
right?
no idea what was going on with Ohio State. Let's get it started with LSU. 37-10. They get it done against the number 4 team in the country, the Georgia Bulldogs. LSU, so we have to immediately start the conversation with our rankings. I'm just going to put LSU we'll get into our rankings in a minute, but I'm going to put LSU right now, number 1.
Yes.
You got LSU number 1 also?
Yes.
LSU 13-0. They play in the toughest division in college football. They're in the toughest conference in college football. They beat Texas while Texas was ranked at Texas. They take care of number 7 Florida. They beat number 9 Auburn. They go on the road to number 3 Alabama and beat them. Then they beat Georgia in the SEC championship. They're undefeated. They have the Heisman, I think, winner in Joe Burrow, who had an awesome game yesterday. They've got to be the number 1 team in the country right now. I don't even know where to start. The complete rebuild of the offense that Orgeron has brought into LSU, which LSU fans, I remember being in Vegas a couple years ago when they were begging to fire an awesome coach, Les Miles. Now they've got Ed Orgeron in there, who's finally got this offense in there. Do I start with the rebuilt offense? Do I start with the job that Joe Burrow has done this year? Do I start with the job that Ed Orgeron has done as head coach? I mean, I don't even know where to start. There's so many highlights to LSU and this game yesterday. Not to mention, we have to mention how many injuries did we see on the Georgia side of the football yesterday that I think impacted the game? I still think LSU would have won because if they really had kept their foot on the gas, I think they could have put up 50 in this game. 50 in this game without the squeak. But I think LSU did a great job. Hats off not only to Georgia for staying in this game, not quitting, also to their fan base. I have learned in the past 2 weeks, Georgia has one of the most solid fan bases. Some of them are myopic, and they're like, we're going to blow them out. Others are more realistic, and they're hoping for a good game, and I think they got one out of their team. Georgia has nothing to hang their head about yesterday. Awesome fan base. I mean, I don't even know where to start with the SEC championship game yesterday.
Well, I look at the SEC championship game. I look at Georgia when they first came out. They went down the field, which is Georgia's not used to. They're not known for going down the field. Deep. They're trying to go deep. And what I looked at in the first quarter of that game was how many drop passes the wide receivers had that hit them right in the numbers. And when you look at those drop passes, it begins to have an effect on as far as the quarterback goes. And I believe that quarterback play actually kind of affected Jake Fromm going down as we went further into the game.
You're right. I really salute Kirby Smart for coming out and saying, we're going right at you on offense. Yes. And the fact that it didn't, materialize into points, I felt like at the end of the first quarter, Georgia was keeping it close. Right. And then I felt that LSU just turned on a switch, and then we had injuries. But LSU is just it's LSU, Ohio State, and Clemson, and then you've got a good 7 or 8 teams, which I would put Wisconsin in there.
Right.
I would put Oklahoma in the second tier.
Right.
I would put Florida in there. I might put Auburn. I'd put Oregon in there. I'd put Georgia in there that are in that second tier of teams as far as talent goes. But right now, it's like the top 3. Any combination of games between those 3, I'm highly interested in right now.
Right. Right, especially, again, when you're just looking at that LSU, just the offense, and then you look at that defense actually came to play a little bit yesterday, which is very, very, not what LSU is really known for this season. I mean, they're known to, basically allow that defense to play, to their competitors, the way the competitors were playing. But that LSU defense actually came to play a little bit yesterday.
Let's talk about Georgia a little bit on the offensive side of the board. What happened to DeAndre Swift yesterday? We know he had a possible shoulder injury. We talked about it on Wednesday. I didn't know if he was going to be 100%. Kirby Smart came out this week with several comments that were trying to build the confidence, I think, of the fan base and the team. Right. Saying, he's done everything that we asked him to do in practice. He's going to be 100% ready to go. He had 2 carries for 13 yards, massively underused. I've got to believe he wasn't 100% yesterday.
Yeah, I don't think he was 100%, and I think Kirby was basically just trying to preserve DeAndre Swift. He didn't really want to get the kid hurt by putting him in a situation where he wasn't 100%.
Yeah,
I can't blame him for that.
I think you're absolutely right. Jake Fromm goes 20 for 42, 225 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 costly interceptions that were momentum killers that I thought. And the real story was Georgia was keeping it close, and in the third quarter, LSU outscores them 17-0 and just pulls away. And that's what, in the first half, 2 drop passes that should have been touchdowns. Right. One that led to a punt and the other one that ended up leading to a field goal. But that's 14 points that you're trading off for a field goal, which is only 3. It could have been a lot worse than it was. I think LSU came out and definitely wanted to make a statement, needed to make a statement. It's nothing, shameful about Georgia. Georgia showed up, but just too many injuries, the suspension. The suspension to their number 1 wide receiver didn't help at all. Cager was out, and then Fromm just couldn't get on target, whether it was, the big lights or he didn't have, DeAndre Swift at 100%, but Georgia has nothing to hang their head about. They played the absolute, hands-down number 1 team in the country yesterday, and I think they're going to be ranked number 1 when the CFP playoff schedule comes out at noon today.
Yeah, I think LSU is going to be ranked number 1 just off of the strength of schedule and, just how well they've played this season. Okay,
so let's go and talk about our top 5, 6 teams in the country right now. I've got LSU number 1, Ohio State number 2. Clemson destroys Virginia, which to me is like a free spot on the bingo board at this point. They're my number 3 team. Oklahoma is where you start getting into the second tier of talent in college football teams this year. I've got Oklahoma at number 4. I've got Georgia at number 5 to finish out the regular season. I'm putting Florida at 6, and I've got Oregon at 7. How does your top 7 break down right now?
My top, of course, is going to be LSU at number 1. I'm going to go a little different. I'm going to put Clemson at number 2, just simply because of what they've done in the last 6 games. They've blown teams out by 30 points the last 6 games of the season.
Right.
I'll have Ohio State number 3, Oklahoma number 4. I'm going to go with Georgia number 5. Because of their strength of schedule. Number 6, I will go with Oregon, and number 7, I'm gonna go with Florida.
Yeah, we have it's pretty close on those, and you start splitting hairs as soon as you know in the top 3, and then from 3 on you're splitting hairs also. I thought that was a great game. Let's get to the number 1 team in the country. Ohio State goes into the Big Ten championship game against Wisconsin, and this was like the first half was like almost a carbon copy of the first game, except in the terms that it was close. And Wisconsin absolutely came to play. We were watching this game yesterday, and with 3 or 4 minutes left to go, we were already saying to ourselves in the first half, this is a must score. This is a must drive for Ohio State. They've got to get, within a touchdown going into halftime.
Right.
They can't go down 28-7. They've got to get some points on the board. And the first half, it was just like a completely different Wisconsin team coming out there that was ready to play. Paul Chryst had them ready. I believe Jonathan Taylor had over 100 yards in the first half.
Yeah, he had like 139 yards, I think.
Well, total. But I think in the first half, he was either close to or getting to 100. And Jack Cohen looked like a completely different quarterback. Right. He wasn't just managing the game. They were going down the field on an Ohio State defense that has been lights out this year. Absolutely bipolar game. The first half was absolutely won by Wisconsin. If you were an Ohio State fan, you had to be concerned.
Right. I look at that game. I think Ohio State rope-a-dope that Wisconsin offense to kind of punch themselves out in that first half, because that second half, they came out and just demolished that Wisconsin defense, and that offense couldn't get anything going. So to me, it just seemed like Ohio State just sat there, withstand their punches, and just came back and let them know, hey, we are the cream of the crop here.
Playing unmotivated in the first half, not really making mistakes and turnovers. J.K. Dobbins couldn't get going.
Right.
Their offensive line couldn't protect Justin Fields in the first half.
Yes.
And then we get to halftime. They get that touchdown late at the end, kind of saved the half. They go down 21-7. The second half, they come out, and it's a completely different story. They outscore Wisconsin 27-0 in the second half. Mm-hmm. Their defense looks like it took some kind of steroids during the halftime speech given by Ryan Day or Urban Meyer or both, which had to be a tongue lashing. Right. I mean, they resurrected Woody Hayes and brought him back at halftime. Something happened in that locker room because everything was completely different. Justin Fields ends up 19 for 31 for 299 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. And they were a completely different team. I don't even know what happened to Wisconsin. It's like all the building blocks just fell apart. It was like the Jenga tower just crashing in the second half. What happened to Wisconsin?
I don't know. That Ohio State defense, they made adjustments. And that's the key to football, is being able to make those adjustments on the fly. And I think Ohio State's defense, they went in, they made those adjustments. Same thing with the offense. And the rest is history.
One thing I noticed is the adjustments they made, I think, had a lot to do with the defensive line, because that defensive line started putting pressure on Jack Cohen and shutting down Jonathan Taylor in the second half. And the Ohio State offensive line started giving Justin Fields a lot more time and opening up huge gaps for J.K. Dobbins to rush through. His second half was absolutely bipolar. When we talk about the second half of this game, is it more about what Ohio State did, imposing their will and determination, or is it more of a collapse of Wisconsin?
You can look at it as a little bit of both. I mean, as we look at this Wisconsin team, as I told you earlier in the season, Wisconsin always starts out really, really well, but they never finish. And to me, that's what it boiled down to last night. They could not finish. And so, I mean, once the Ohio State started imposing their will, it's like they just decided to give up for some reason.
Just not enough ammunition in the gun yesterday. Why aren't more people talking about Justin Fields for the Heisman Trophy? He's got almost 3,000 yards in passing, 40 touchdowns, 1 interception. That's amazing. On top of that, he's got 471 yards rushing and 10 touchdowns rushing. So he's accounted for 50 touchdowns and 1 interception with almost 3,500 total yards.
Well, in a perfect world without Joe Burrow, I mean, he would be the Heisman candidate. But you have to look at what Joe Burrow has done with this LSU offense. Who Ohio State has kind of already been known for their offense. But I mean, you look at this LSU offense over the past 10 years, it was very inept. Could not move the ball down the field. No passing game. They basically ran the ball. This guy has opened up this offense and turned LSU into a whole different team.
I think it's a lot closer, and I hope the voting reflects that it's a lot closer than just a Joe Burrow blowout. What I hate is guys that send in their ballots before the end of the Army-Navy game.
Right.
You know, I want to see the championship game. I want to see the whole entirety of their resume. But right now, I think it's Joe Burrow, and then, I mean, you know, if Justin Fields won the Heisman at 50 touchdowns on a season with 1 interception and 3,500 yards,
Right.
I would not balk at that very much at all.
No.
It would be surprising because the people's favorite and what I think CBS has pushed has been Joe Burrow all season, and it doesn't mean he's not, you know, deserving of it. I just think that the margin is a lot closer than what a lot of the people in the media are saying.
Yeah, and I think it is a lot closer. But then again, too, you have to understand the juggernaut of that is the SEC. That, you know, okay, he did beat Alabama, which is beat St. Nick at St. Nick's house.
Right.
I mean, he did, you know, beat Florida. And so you go down and look at those teams that Joe Burrow has beaten, and not only has he beaten them, he's actually took them to the woodshed. So you look at what he's done against some of those brand name teams. I mean, of course, they're going to push him over the top.
Yeah, I think so. Let's get on to our next game. Number 3, Clemson in the ACC championship game. This, to me, had to be one of the more lackluster games as far as the championship game. In a day where we saw all the top ranked teams playing other top ranked teams. I think it was a combination of Clemson coming out and being motivated and wanting to make a statement. I don't think that they can get to number 1, certainly. But I think if they made a statement against a 9-3 Virginia team who won the Coastal that had a right to be in that game, but they were just outclassed, outleagued. And here's the thing about the ACC championship game and Clemson overall. I think Clemson's one of the top 3 teams, and that's absolutely clear. But I don't know how good they are because of the level of competition they've played in the ACC. I'm going to be really interested to see how the rankings go and who they match up against, because I think that they've got all that talent in the world, offensively, defensively, but they really haven't played anybody like ranked teams in the same fashion that LSU has, beating at least 4 or 5 ranked teams, and Ohio State. And I don't exactly know what I'm getting. I know what I'm getting with the other 2 teams. They take care of Virginia yesterday, 62-17 in a game that wasn't even close. I thought Virginia, with the dual threat quarterback, would be able to keep it close. Clemson was just like, you're an idiot, Ron.
Right.
We're way motivated, and they showed it yesterday in an absolute blow. We couldn't even watch that game. What kept coming to my mind yesterday we were watching this is it's unwatchable.
Right.
The competition level there's such a disparity between these 2 teams. It's hard to believe that this seemed like a third week into the season game and not an ACC championship game.
Well, yeah, I mean, just look at what we did last night. We were flipping back and forth between the Ohio State game and that game and the Clemson and Virginia game. And every time we flip back to that Clemson-Virginia game, Clemson scored a touchdown. It's just like...
Oh, they scored again.
Oh, they scored again. Oh, go back to the next game.
Yeah.
And so you look at that as far as competition-wise, I mean, that was really not a game. I guess you could call it like a glorified scrimmage for a championship game. And so, to me, Clemson just is, of course, the cream of the crop in the ACC. It's nothing.
Yeah, definitely in the ACC. It's going to be interesting to see how the rankings come out and how they do in the actual playoffs. Trevor Lawrence goes for 302 yards and 4 touchdowns in the game. Travis Etienne had 114 yards and 1 touchdown. I think the real story, though, for Clemson was their defense and their wide receiver, T. Higgins. He goes for 9 receptions, 182 yards, and 3 touchdowns in the game. Absolutely blows up Virginia's defense, who was, a C-plus defense coming into the game. And I think, like we talked about on Wednesday, Bronco Mendenhall has done a good job bringing them along. But in the ACC, I mean, it's just nobody's even close right now.
Right.
And I don't see that changing because I think that Clemson's going to have a huge offseason with recruiting, and they're going to be right back in the same position. And a lot of these players, Trevor Lawrence and a lot of their star players, are going to be coming back next year. Last time I checked, Dabo Swinney's going to be coming back next year. Right. Their defensive coordinator, Brett Venables, is going to be there next year. So I don't see a lot changing in the ACC landscape as far as talent dropping, other teams getting better, Clemson coming back to the pack. It's not going to happen.
Right. I don't see it happening anytime soon whatsoever. I mean, I think Clemson's going to have that dominance like Florida State had in the 90s where they actually dominated the ACC, and that's the way I see Clemson right now.
Here's a statistic to tell you how good they've been. Since 2015, Clemson is 63-2 against the rest of the ACC.
Yeah.
Think about that. That's dominance.
Yeah. So
people can make an argument and say, well, Miami's down. Florida State is a dumpster fire of insanity right now. There's, nobody else really out there. Georgia Tech is an absolute mess.
Right.
Louisville, they haven't been good now for at least 2 years, and I don't know what direction they're going in. I mean, I can't name anybody that is really competitive in that league. Duke has fallen off. Yeah. Georgia or Virginia had a good season. I would say a C+, B- season. Mm-hmm. But when you put it up against Clemson, it's just not even close.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like looking at the SEC and Alabama for all those years, where Alabama basically carried the torch, and so that's exactly what Clemson is doing right now. They're carrying the torch for the ACC.
Let's get to the Big 12 championship game. Two teams that were coming in with a record of 11-1 faced each other 2 weeks ago: Oklahoma and Baylor. I think it was a little bit of a sad case because Baylor's quarterback Charlie Brewster gets hurt in the second quarter. I mean, he absolutely got pile drived into that turf, which has concrete underneath it. It's not like real turf, and didn't play the rest of the game. And yet Baylor still made a game out of it. This was a close game. I took Baylor plus the 8.5. They covered for me. But that was a disappointing game, much like the Georgia game where injuries played a factor in this one. They had to go with a second and third string quarterbacks that just weren't up to the task. I think Oklahoma's defense absolutely showed up, and CeeDee Lamb absolutely showed up in that game. Oklahoma gets the win in overtime, 30-23 over Baylor. Oklahoma's defense holds Baylor to 227 total yards, including 35 rushing yards. You're not going to win the Big 12 championship game, even with an Oklahoma defense or any defense, when you're only rushing for 35 yards and you're being held to 227 total yards on offense.
Right. But I mean, they held them to 227 yards on total offense. But what Baylor did was they got chunk plays against Oklahoma. If Oklahoma's going to get into the playoffs, you cannot continue to give up those chunk plays. You had a third-string quarterback throwing 70-yard touchdowns yesterday. You can't do that if you're going to play against a Clemson or a Ohio State or LSU. I mean, that's going to kill you. So they have to tighten up that defense.
Yeah, I agree. Like the rest of the year, the shining star for Oklahoma yesterday was on offense, and it had to be CeeDee Lamb. He has 8 receptions for 173 yards. Yeah. Their offense is so dynamic, and I've said all year, I just love Jalen Hurts. I love the student and athlete that he is. Student athlete, I know that gets thrown around in a PC correct way a lot these days, but I just love Jalen Hurts. He's done it in the SEC. He's done it in the Big 12. You never hear about him getting into problems. He doesn't mouth off. He performs. I think I've got to put him number 3 in my Heisman right now. He's just a dynamic player. He can beat you with his arm. He can beat you with his intelligence. He can beat you running the ball. Him and CeeDee Lamb, I mean, they're the reason why Oklahoma is in this position. Right. They're going to be in the college football playoff.
Yeah. I mean, I love the play Jalen Hurts did to CeeDee Lamb where he jukes about 5 people and goes down the field for like 70 yards, just making everybody miss. I mean, this guy is a superstar out there on the outside. And so, I mean, I think he's definitely going to play a big he's going to have a big play a big factor in the playoff with Oklahoma succeeding. But, I mean,
it's going to come down to the D.
I mean, that's a dynamic duo, offensive dynamic duo that's just, I don't know, I haven't seen that in a while.
Yeah, you're right about their defense. Their defense has got to tighten up.
Yeah.
And if they're going to be in the playoff and make any kind of any kind of dent, it's going to have to be because their defense steps up, because the teams they're going against are a step up ahead of them right now. Pac-12 championship was the most underwhelming game by far that I saw. First of all, I've never seen a championship game where about 35,000 people came to the game dressed up as empty seats.
Yep.
I mean, that stadium, you want to talk about the difference between the SEC and the Pac-12 is look at the attendance at that game. Yeah. And people can say, well, they were expecting rain. You don't not show up 35,000 people or so because of a light drizzle, which is what it ended up being. But to the game, number 5 Utah goes up against Oregon. I took Oregon in this game for a reason because I thought their offense couldn't be stagnant for 2 games in a row, and it wasn't. Not only was the attendance and the overall game underwhelming, Utah came out not ready to play and flatter than a tire. I absolutely have no idea how you can't be psyched up when you're playing for a Pac-12 championship. And if Utah wins this game, with LSU winning, they would have been in the college playoff. Yeah. Tyler Huntley comes out absolutely in a zombie daze. Not ready to play, not focused in mentally at all. I mean, he had a mediocre first half at best. And Mario Cristobal, all credit to him, had Oregon ready to go in this game, amazingly. 0 points for Utah in the first half. I don't know if that's an indictment against Utah not being ready or against Oregon's defense, which has been really good all year. But they don't score any points in the first half at all. And Justin Herbert managed the game, which is a term that I hate, but that's actually what he did. He just managed the game. C.D. Verdell, the running back for Oregon, I said you got to watch out for this guy and Johnny Johnson, their wide receiver on the outside. He goes for 18 rushes, 208 yards rushing, and 3 touchdowns. And he was the star of the game for Oregon. They came out, established the run, were ready to play. Justin Herbert didn't have to go out and be a Superman. He was able to manage the game. They get a big win, and they're going to be in the Rose Bowl, probably against Wisconsin now. I don't know what happened to Utah, though.
Utah fell victim of the 4 Ps, which was proper planning prevents poor performance. I mean, it's like these guys were not – they had properly planned for this Oregon offense. I mean, Oregon is able to attack you from all facets of the game. They can get you in the return. They can get you in with running the ball. They can also get you with passing. So to me, it's like even though this Utah defense was supposedly a top tier defense, they wasn't ready. And then on top of that, when you have your quarterback who's taking sacks, who's missing wide open receivers, who's turning the ball over. You can't have that against an Oregon team and expect to win.
Yeah, I feel bad for Utah because they had a great season. They had a letdown early in the season when 2 of their players, Zach Moss, the running back, and Tyler Huntley, weren't 100% at USC, but they were going up against a 4th-string quarterback at that point. They lose that game on a Friday night, and then this loss here gets them out of the playoff. And just for the fan base, I kind of wanted Utah to win the game just for the fan base to get into the playoffs, but it just didn't happen. We're glad you're joining us here on a birthday celebration college football wrap-up show on a Sunday morning on YouTube. I really want to thank everybody that's joined us on Twitter, joined our subscriptions. In the last month, we've had 1,800 views, which has been awesome. We put a lot into putting out a great show production-wise, content-wise, try and make it entertaining. Want to give some shout-outs to people that have been supporting the show in the last month. Connie Reed out at UCSD, Joseph Monroe, Kai Kearns, all of our followers in Southern California, especially San Diego, Kate Fletcher and the Fletcher family, Shelby Langloy, Noah Allen, Paige the Warrior Princess, thank you for your subscription, Alana Bolin, Clorel Lamoth, Wyatt Schaefer, barista. He's the top barista at a local Starbucks. We appreciate your support. Thomas Johnson from UF Shands here in Gainesville. Mark Howell from Mark Howell Safety Enterprises. And the Gainesville Rattlers junior football team. We appreciate all of you joining the First Round family. If you want to get a hold of the show, you can do it real easy. The First Round RD@gmail.com. We'll be giving more shout outs, answering questions that you send in. Now I want to go to the NFL, but I'm going to put that on pause for right now. I want to talk about Christmas coming up. We've got the more elves came in, more decorations are here. I think the studio looks pretty good, especially with all the balloons in place. And you and I were talking about, where some of these teams in the new year are going to be going. And we were talking about NBA teams yesterday. We were talking about NFL teams. Right. We were talking about college football teams and some of the teams, and what they need. Right. And I thought it'd be a cool idea to come up with a list of people for Christmas with it coming up, because we've still got 3 shopping weeks left, or 2.5. Right. And what they would need. So I'm going to throw some names at you. You've got some names on your list that you're going to throw at me. And we're going to talk about what these players or personalities in or out of sports need for Christmas. And the first one is, Chris, what does Chip Kelly need under the Christmas tree this year?
All types of help, but I'm going to say he needs a better quarterback. I mean, he has a quarterback that shows up one game, doesn't show up the next. I mean, he needs help at the quarterback position.
Yeah, I agree with you. They've had inconsistent play. Now, adding a little sprig of grace to this conversation, he is a freshman. This is his first year. I know he needs a new quarterback, but I think you hit it on the nail on the head the first time when you said he needs a lot. Who's the first name on your list for me?
Jason Garrett. What we getting for Jason Garrett?
Jason Garrett. For Jason Garrett, I'm going to get him the 1-800 number to U-Haul, because he's going to need a new office at the end of the season. Right. And I don't want it to be a Jason Garrett that's carrying all his boxes out. Right. He's at a level where he's made enough money now, so where he can call 1-800 U-Haul, right, and they can come in. So I want to get him reservations from U-Haul that a crew is going to come into AT&T Stadium at Jerry World, and they're going to very professionally put all his stuff together in nice, neat boxes. They'll have label makers ready, and they'll load it up into the U-Haul, and it won't be a big problem for him to move out and go on to the next position in life, whatever 2020 has for him. Yeah. Chris, what does the head coach of the Detroit Lions, Matt Patricia, need under the Christmas tree this year?
Oh, boy. Let's see. Running backs, quarterbacks, offensive lines.
Consistent play of defense.
That, too.
I'm not giving you easy ones today.
I know, man. He needs every. I'm just going to keep it. He needs a running back. I mean, he needs a running back to help alleviate some of the pressure off of that quarterback play. I mean, he's down to, who's the former Gator quarterback that was there?
Jeff Driscoll.
Jeff Driscoll.
Yeah.
Wow. Never heard that name in a while.
And he's injured.
Exactly. So he needs everything, man. I don't know, man. He needs to get somebody from Ford to manufacture him some players, because he needs it all, man. That Detroit is just, I don't know, man.
I have bigger expectations for them. Who's the next person on your list for me?
Rob Gronkowski. He's been everywhere.
Rob Gronkowski. Let me think. Rob Gronkowski this year for Christmas needs a date with Riri. I want to get Rob Gronkowski a date with Rihanna. And I'm going to tell you why. Because a couple weeks ago, we were talking about the dance he did. Right. He loves to party. Right. And anytime Rob Gronkowski parties, he dances. Right. I think if he went on a date with Rihanna, maybe to Las Vegas to my favorite club, Omnia, which we will be there in 2 years to celebrate Ron's 50th Jubilee, which we're already planning.
Yes.
Today's 48. I think if he went on a date with Rihanna, she could give him some dance moves.
Yeah.
And I think he'd be happy that I gave him Rihanna under his Christmas tree.
I'm pretty sure he would. I think every guy would. Rihanna, yes.
The next guy on my list for you, what would you put under the Christmas tree for MMA fighter and my former top favorite athlete until he went sideways with his potty mouth and attitude, MMA fighter Conor McGregor? What does he need under the tree besides duct tape over his mouth?
I would say he needs a good defense attorney, because he keeps getting himself in trouble messing with people. He needs a good defense attorney, someone that can keep him out of trouble until January. Definitely.
Good point.
Attorney. All right, number 3, Jameis Winston.
Jameis Winston. I think Jameis Winston needs a new, high-profile, determined agent, because he is going to be out in Tampa Bay. We talked about it on Wednesday's show that he's got 20 interceptions on the year already. I have, for the past 2 years, dubbed him the NFL's #1 turnover magnet because that's what he gravitates towards, including 12 fumbles just this year. So I think James Winston under the Christmas tree, I'm going to give him a highly motivated, brand new agent because he's going to need a new job somewhere in the NFL. I'm going to guess it's not going to be with Tampa Bay, and I'm going to guess he's not going to be the #1 guy wherever he goes. I'm also going to guess he's not going to get $20 million. The next person I have on the list for you, you're under a lot of pressure on this one because Le'Veon Bell, running back for the New York Jets, needs something under the Christmas tree, Chris. What is it that you're going to give him to help him?
I'm going to give Le'Veon Bell... gosh. I mean, what can I give him? I'm going to give him a clean detox to get some of the marijuana, some of the drugs out of his system, so he can actually run the ball and be productive like the Le'Veon Bell we knew beforehand. Who doesn't now never want to take another drug test? So we're going to give him a detox to get himself right again.
Well, he does have less than 5 touchdowns on the season, and he does have less than 600 yards rushing for the amount of money he's making. Something's not right.
Yeah, something's not right. I mean, you have a guy that took a year off and he comes back and this is what he gives you? Nah.
Great point.
Nah, we're going to detox him. All right, my number 4, David Fizdale, the former New York Knicks head coach.
David Fizdale. Okay, so he just got fired.
Just got canned.
And it's not surprising the last couple seasons that they've had there in New York. I'm going to get David Fizdale a 1-year subscription to a MapQuest app to find his new offices because he, like Jameis Winston, is also going to be on the move. All the people you're giving me are either going to lose their job or they're already been fired. What kind of a Christmas list is this?
Hey, man.
You're not being a jolly elf this morning.
Hey, of course not. But these are actually kind of simple. These are easy ones, though.
So you know what? I'm going to give David Fizdale a motivational team coach. Yeah. Because it's not his fault that they gave him junk. If you put junk in, junk comes out. Yeah. So I'm getting David Fizdale for Christmas, a motivational team coach to help build back up that ego and tell him, you can do it. Get back out there, David Fizdale.
Yeah, you can do it, Skipper.
You can do it. Get back out there. You got this. Okay, under the Christmas tree this year, you want to talk about going from the penthouse to the gutter. What are you going to get head coach of the Golden State Warriors, Steve Kerr?
I'm going to get Steve Kerr a superstar. I mean, we got to get him a superstar back on that team because that team is the worst team that I've possibly ever seen. I mean, out of the Golden State Warriors history, I've never seen a Golden State Warriors team that bad.
They do have some injuries, but they are last in the West right now. Sacramento has a better record than them.
Exactly. And I'm looking at, even though, yes, they say this is a young team, but they need some help somewhere. I mean,
so for Christmas, you're going to bring Durant back, or what are you going to do?
I'm going to bring back. I'm going to magically tap and heal Stephen Curry's his wrist injury, and I'm going to put some liniment on Clay's knee, and we're going to bring him back early, and we're going to try to make a push to at least get to the 8th seed.
Okay, that's a good one. He would appreciate that under the tree.
I'm pretty sure he would. All right. My next one is, of course, the commentator Stephen A. Smith. What are we getting Stephen A. Smith?
Stephen A. Smith. What does he need? He needs so much. He just signed a new contract with ESPN. Yeah. I think Stephen A. Smith needs a new side hustle. Yeah. I want to see Stephen A. Smith as an Uber driver. I want to call Uber one time when I'm in town and I don't have my baby Jag for whatever reason. And I want Stephen A. Smith to show up. I think he needs a new side hustle because the whole thing that he does now is so tired and played. So played. It's played, man. That whole shtick, it's like, it doesn't come off as genuine. It really comes off fake. Half the time his predictions, more than half the time, are so far off. And what I can't stand is when people say salacious, outlandish, crazy stuff just to get ratings or attention. Yeah. I mean, that just ticks me off when it's like, he'll say something crazy like Florida's going to win the national championship at the beginning of the season. I mean, something just crazy like that just to get people talking. Yeah. Get people talking because you know what you're talking about. You're informative. You have your stats on point and you're interesting. Yeah. What makes him interesting is half the stupid stuff he says doesn't come true. So for Christmas, under his Christmas tree this year in Philadelphia, Stephen A. Smith is getting a brand new side hustle. He's going to be an Uber driver. I'm going to call him and listen, the loquaciousness of the way that you're driving this cab, Stephen A. Smith, is just like pyrotechnically challenging my Gore-Tex right now. You're doing a great job.
No,
There's my Stephen A. Smith imitation.
Man, can you imagine Stephen A. Smith calling you? Hey, this is Stephen A. I'm outside. Come on.
Stephen A. Smith here in my Prius. I'm ready to pick you up, Ron. We're going to take you around the NBA tonight.
Nah, he's driving a Tesla.
Oh, he's driving a Tesla. That's right. Ray just got very excited behind the board over here when you said Tesla.
Yes.
You know what would even be funnier is co-driving with Stephen A. Smith. You know, it's the President of the United States. Stephen A. Smith is going to be incredible behind the wheel. The most dynamic 4K dripping in color animated human being that you can have driving. We're going to make Stephen A. Smith great again. It's going to be incredible. And, you know, everybody knows that when he does great here, we're going to send him over to China with the Prius. It's going to be awesome.
All right.
Okay. That's my last one for you. I went outside of the world of sports. What does Justin Bieber need under his tree this year?
Oh, Justin Bieber.
I didn't want to give you an easy one, man.
Ooh, this is interesting. Justin Bieber, I'm going to say Justin Bieber needs. He just got married, so I guess I'm going to say he needs him a baby to just kind of settle down and probably calm him down a little bit. I mean, because
a baby would calm down Justin Bieber.
So. I think a baby will calm Justin Bieber.
Where's
down.
the man card button on this guy? You're on double secret man card probation just for that answer. A baby, Justin. The last thing Justin Bieber needs is a baby.
I think we're going to give Justin Bieber a baby, man, so we can take him away from the spotlight and allow him to actually enjoy his marriage. And
he would probably use the baby to put himself more in the spotlight.
I think Justin Bieber. I think he'll kind of fade back, kind of like Justin Timberlake.
Okay, because Justin Timberlake's been fading back in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, that's my number 6 for you, Justin Timberlake.
Oh gosh, Justin Timberlake. Social etiquette classes. So I've got confetti in my mouth. Justin Timberlake. Okay, for Christmas, for Justin Timberlake, I'm going to get him some social etiquette classes. You're married to Jessica Biel, is that her name?
Yes.
I mean, I don't keep up on a lot of this stuff, obviously, but you know, wasn't it in like the last 2 weeks he was caught doing some filming down in New Orleans and he was holding some girl's hand and a bunch of people out in public and caught. What are you doing? You had one job to do. Be Justin Timberlake with a hot wife. How do you blow that?
I don't know, but you know Jessica Biel's grandmother's from Gainesville.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
There's a minor. Oh gosh. Okay, I don't know what to do with all this tinsel. There's a minor celebrity stir in Gainesville. I met River Phoenix's mom. I think her name was Rain. Super awesome woman, man. Down to earth. I mean, she was great. And who's the singer? Ray Boom Boom? Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Right.
They're from here.
Tom
Sister
Petty.
Hazel, another group. Okay, a lot of people were handing out a lot of gifts.
Yeah.
That's awesome. A lot of those people need gifts. Let's go to the NFL. We've got to start in the NFL with the Thursday night game. And I don't want to spend too much time on it. Dallas, in a must-win situation, goes into Chicago. They get beat by the Bears, who found some offense finally. And Mitchell Trubisky found his game early under the Christmas tree. 31-24. It wasn't even that close, was it?
No, it really wasn't. I mean, they were down.
Dallas scored 17 points in the fourth quarter.
Right.
Two of those touchdowns were garbage touchdowns anyway, when Chicago was basically playing a prevent defense. This game was not that close. Jerry Jones afterwards in his 45-minute... Okay, so this is what I love about Jerry Jones. After the game, they go to him and he has this little press conference. The first thing Jerry Jones says in the press conference after the game, and why is the owner giving a press conference anyway? But the first thing he says is, you know, we're not going to talk that long about this game. We're not going to talk that long. 35 minutes later, he's still answering questions about what happened in this game.
Right.
He even said in that interview, it wasn't that close.
Right.
And it wasn't.
No. And again, it comes down to coaching and the guy that you should have fired like 5 years ago. Why is he still there? I mean, Jason Garrett, he can't coach, can't manage the game, can't seem to get his players developed through do and run an offense. So why is he still there? It's on you, Jerry.
You know, for having as much talent as they have, and we've talked about this all year long, they can't get it right. I think Jason Garrett is a part of it. I don't think Jason Garrett is all of it. I think it's Zeke holding out. I think it's them coming in a week before the season and offering Dak Prescott $30 million a year, which he doesn't deserve. And he says no. I think it's Jerry Jones trying to be a GM at 81 years old or 78 or however old he is. He looks really bad to me. And this isn't me personally attacking him at all. He just doesn't look healthy. And mentally, you put the team together that you want. I mean, Zeke is there. Why? Because that's who Jerry wanted.
Right.
And they gave him a contract when he didn't need to get a contract. They could have had him sit out. They're 6-7, and somehow at this point right now, before Monday Night Football, when the G-men go on the road to Philly, right now at 6-7, they're in first place. Mm-hmm. That tells you where the NFC East is at.
Right.
I've said it 9 million times. The most myopic fan base outside of Notre Dame is Dallas.
Right.
Dallas could be 1-15, we're going to the Super Bowl. Next year's our year. Actually, we're going to supersede all the rules, and somehow we're going to make it to the Super Bowl this year. I don't know. Chicago keeps their playoff hopes alive. Dallas has got to hope that the G-men beat Philly, and then they've got to go on the road, I think, next week to Philly, and that's going to be basically, if Philly wins today, they wrap it up next week against Dallas with a win. Philly's got to get on the right trajectory. That's a whole nother story. Other big games going on in the NFL. Ravens go on the road to the 9-3 Bills today. Bills are getting 6.5 points. This, I think, is a story more about two of the quarterbacks, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. Josh Allen, 2,600 yards, 16 touchdowns, 8 interceptions with a QBR rating of 47. Mm-hmm. On the other side, for Baltimore, you've got Lamar Jackson, possible MVP, definitely an MVP candidate, 2,500 yards, so the yards are about the same, 25 touchdowns, 5 interceptions with a QBR rating of 82. I think it's too much for the Bills. I think Ravens get it done. That's a very easy pick, and it's easy to say. But the Bills do have a pretty good defense. I think that it's just going to be too much offense. And actually, I want to hear what you have to say about this, but Baltimore's defense this year has been better than a lot of people understand or think.
Yeah, it really has. You would think with all the losses they took, with Terrell Suggs leaving, that's been the key, like a captain to that Baltimore defensive line. I mean, you have players like that who've been actually, these marquee players for Baltimore, and for them to actually go and that defense to still remain a stout. And then on top of that, you have Lamar Jackson, who can play both controlled, have a controlled offense by running the ball with Mark Ingram, as well as having Lamar Jackson be able to pass the ball as efficiently as he has this season. That definitely has allowed Baltimore to be that even kill team that's both helping the offense and the defense this year.
Here's a stat a lot of people don't know. In Baltimore's last 8 games, the most amount of points that they've given up is 23.
Yeah.
Now, that's not a lot of points. What I think is amazing about that stat, the teams they've played, Seattle, New England, San Francisco, Houston, they gave up 7 points to a Houston team that has a good offense. The Rams, they gave up 6 points. The most points in the last 8 games that their defense has given up is 23 points. Yeah. I think that says volumes because everybody talks about their offense and Lamar Jackson, and rightfully so. But their defense is right on point, peaking at the right time of the year.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you need for Baltimore. I mean, Baltimore has always been kind of like that smash mouth, had that smash mouth type of defense, which is what made them, possibly, the Super Bowl champions the last 2 times they won.
Yeah. Another big game that's on the board today. San Francisco goes on the road to New Orleans. New Orleans is 10-2. They've won 9 out of their last 10 games. San Francisco, I think, is still one of the dominant teams in the NFL. They got off to an 8-0 start and have dropped 2 out of their last 4 games. San Francisco getting 2 points on the road today. I think this game is so close that I've got to take San Francisco and the 2 points.
Yeah, I'm taking San Francisco as well. But you have to look who San Francisco lost to. They lost to Baltimore, and they lost to Seattle. So you're looking at the two top-notch teams in both the NFC and the AFC. So when you look at that, I mean, as a San Francisco fan, there's nothing to look down on. I mean, team is for real this year.
Number 1 in defense overall, number 1 against the pass, only giving up 163 yards passing. And it's going to be, the immovable object meets the hard, fast, and not moving force.
Right.
In the offense for New Orleans going up against that defense. I just think that San Francisco with Jimmy G back there is going to be able to move the ball effectively. I think it's going to be a close game, but if you're giving me points in a close game, even though it's on the road and they've lost 2 out of their last 4, I'm still taking San Francisco plus the 2 points. Another game that at the beginning of the season you have to circle and look at and say, this is 1 out of 5 games that I can't miss in the NFL this year. This would be it. And even being a New England fan, I can't get up for this game. Kansas City goes to Gillette, and somehow they're getting 3 points. I don't understand this. We talked about this last week with New England going into Houston giving 3, and I was like, I don't understand how they're giving 3 points. Their offense is so anemic right now. Edelman, questionable for the game. Mohamed Sanu, questionable for the game. Their other wide receivers that are available are Dorsett, N'Keal Harry, and the rookie, Jacoby Myers. Right. How are they giving 3 points?
Well, I mean, I guess it's more about, this Kansas City defense has been playing microscopically better over the last few weeks. I mean, they're not solidly there yet, but they've been playing better over the last few weeks. And so, I mean, I think that's where it comes down to. Because really it boils down to, can New England's offense get back rolling? Or, will it be Kansas City defense? Is it going to continue to get better?
I think they have been getting better.
Right.
They're averaging only giving up 22 points a game.
Yeah.
It's not like last year. Now, they're not dramatically better. The defenses in this game, New England is lights out better. It's like New England, San Francisco, and then there's a bunch of other defenses in the NFL.
Right.
But they have been measurably better last year in terms of KC's defense. They're only averaging giving up 22 points. I think, again, this is a close game with a dynamic offense. Mahomes only has thrown 2 or 3 interceptions the whole season. I think they've got too many weapons. Kelsey, Sammy Watkins, Tyreek Hill. They've got a lot of options they can go at and break down that defense. I think, in a close game, again, even though it's on the road, I got to take KC plus the 3 points in this game until New England shows me on offense that they have rebuilt this thing, which is very concerning to me. My confidence level right now is not that high. And where has Rex Burkhead been? Where has Sony Michel been? Where has James White. Where has he been this season? Their running game has not picked up. They've had a lot of injuries at wide receiver. They lose Josh Gordon. They lose Gronkowski. AB was only there for 1 game.
Right.
You've got Philip Dorsett, and then Edelman's been, questionable for this week, but he hasn't been 100% all season. He missed a couple games at the beginning of the season. There's just too many targets out there that are red flags for me with New England. I know they're playing at home. I know it's Brady Belichick. I know they're my favorite team. I got to take KC plus the 3 points, though.
You take KC, but it's simply what it boils down to is New England has had issues on the offensive line. I mean, this season, New England is actually averaging less than 5 yards a carry at the running back position. So you can't run the ball. You have issues where you can't really take the top off the defense. You're having those type of issues with injuries in the passing game. It's going to fall back, and it's going to end up hurting that offense, which in return, as we know, the less the offense is on the field, the more the defense is on the field. It's going to take a wear and tear on the defense.
Yeah.
So they have to find somewhere to get their running game up and running.
No sustained drives for New England, and it's a big concern. And, in the Houston game last week on Sunday night, we saw the frustration not only building, but actually coming out with Tom Brady. Right. And rightfully so. I mean, he's yelling at his wide receivers, you got to get open. You got to create space. And he's talking to guys like Philip Dorsett, who's been in the league for over 8 years, 10 years. He's talking to Edelman, who he's been playing with, since I was a fetus. He's talking to Mohamed Sanu, who's not a new guy on the block.
Right.
These are established wide receivers that know you've got to create space. We have very distinct, tight routes that we run, and you've got to make space. Brady can still throw it into a window, even at the age that he's at. But if their offense is just not building and sustaining long drives, and then it puts, like you said, Load management for the defense of New England. The last game I wanted to talk to was Seattle going on the road at the Rams. You know, we've chronicled the story of the Rams this year. Just, you want to talk about going from the penthouse to, like, Mediocreville.
Right.
They're committed to mediocrity. I still don't know what's going. Jared Goff, he's going to go for probably over 500 attempts on the season with this game. 500 attempts, 13 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Well, I don't know what's going on with Jared Goff. They gave him a big contract, and then the production goes low. Where else have we heard a story like that? Big contract, production falls. Well, we've heard it from Todd Gurley.
Right.
Todd Gurley signs that $60 million deal that put, Zeke Elliott and Le'Veon Bell into a tailspin for some reason mentally.
Right.
Todd Gurley's only rushed for 642 yards on the season. So, again, big contract, and then the production goes down.
Right.
I don't even have an answer for what's happened to the Rams this year, but Seattle's one of the top 4 best teams in football right now. And the Rams are 7-5, fighting to try and make the playoffs. They've got to win this game or their playoffs picture is over.
Well, I mean, when you look at, again, we look at the Rams, it goes back to Todd Gurley not being able to, he's not being effective rushing the ball. He's not being able to be effective in the passing game. He's known for being a pass catcher out of the backfield. So when you have all of those things that are missing that Todd Gurley does, it does put pressure on Garrett Goff and Cooper Kupp, who has been the consistent wide receiver threat for the LA Rams, St. Louis Rams, LA Rams. So, when you have the fact that you have Todd Gurley that's not there, you have Cooper Kupp, who's been basically the Julian Edelman for this team,
right?
And now that your number one receiver, I can't think of who. I forgot the number one receiver. He's not even a threat. So when you're
talking about Cooks.
Cooks, right?
Yeah, Brandon Cooks.
Right. So you have Cooks that's not being a threat this year. And the only thing you have is basically a slot receiver that's been your go-to guy. This is what you're going to get.
I think the real problem is a medical issue with Todd Gurley, and the offensive line is no good.
Yes.
That's the problem with the Rams. On the other side of the football, we know what we're getting with quarterback and with offense. I think the story is they're starting to rebuild the Legion of Boom in Seattle. In the last 3 games, their defense has caused 11 turnovers. Yeah. And how about the emergence of Rashad Penny at running back for them, who can catch it out of the backfield, and he's proven he cannot fumble. He's gotten over his fumbling issues, but it looks like he's giving more of an effort, and I just think that's the story with them. The reemergence of their defense, good play from Carson and Penny at running back, and obviously, with Russell at quarterback, you get an established guy that's been in the league that's going to make smart plays. He's also a true dual-threat quarterback. I think that it's going to be too much for the Rams, which, again, is another easy pick. But I like Seattle in this position.
Yeah, I like Seattle in this position too, simply for their defense and the fact that you have an experienced quarterback that's not going to turn the ball over. He's not going to make. He's going to take what the defense gives him.
Oh, you went there.
Yes, I did. And I mean, and their ability to score, just be able to control the game, both passing and rushing. So I'm going with Seattle as well.
Well, it'll be a big NFL weekend. We'll learn a lot more about what the playoff picture is going to look like after today. One of my favorite subjects that we don't get an opportunity to talk about enough here in the first round and in sports in general is boxing. We said a couple weeks ago, I was asking the question, why this fight between Anthony Joshua, the Remax, and Andy Ruiz Jr. in Saudi Arabia, first of all. It should have happened in London.
Right.
At Oxygen Arena or someplace, Wembley, where they could have gotten 60 or 70,000. They had a crowd of 90,000 there in Saudi Arabia somehow, but the promotion for it was like, you didn't hear anything about it. It was on some pay-per-view channel that, is like in the basement of some Comic-Con nerd's house. It was so weird, and yet I still want to talk about it because Anthony Joshua gets a unanimous decision against Anthony Ruiz, further mucking up the heavyweight division. I thought it was a good fight because did you see the fight?
I saw clips of it from Facebook when they actually showed pretty much just about the whole fight.
Right, just keeping his distance away from Ruiz, not fighting in close like he did before, showing himself to be one of the top 3 contenders in the world. And now I'm really excited because I told you 2 months ago there was that barring losses by Tyson Fury, or Deontay Wilder, which they both took care of business in the last month and a half with their fights, they'll be fighting again in February, and that's exactly what we learned 2 days ago, that they signed a fight in February. The winner of that will get Anthony Joshua. So we're signed up for the next 5 months of getting some good heavyweight fights, and there'll be actually something out there that we could talk about.
Yeah, it'll be something to talk about. What Anthony Joshua did yesterday, what he should have done the previous fight was, as Teddy Atlas said, he hid the China yesterday. He stayed his distance, and he actually used his jab, and he was able to use it effectively to show why he is one of the top boxers in the world right now.
Right, smart boxing. Now, I think he has a chin, because if you want to see an amazing boxing match, go watch Anthony Joshua fighting against Vladimir Klitschko. Yeah. You want to talk about taking bombs on the chin. That's exactly what both those guys did in that fight. Not as much action in the fight yesterday, but I'm glad to see that, Joshua got the win, setting up some good fights for us coming up in the next 6 months. Amen. Good for boxing. What else is going on in the world of sports, Chris?
Well, I only have one story today, and this story is actually very interesting. Basically, this story is regarding Laura Holtkamp. She's the first mother to actually referee an NBA game. She actually refereed the Golden State game the other night, and basically, as guys, we sit here, we talk about sports, and we also try to keep it as family oriented as possible. So, I'd just like to give a shout out to the ladies every now and again, and I just want to give a shout out to her as the first mother to actually ref an NBA game. Her husband is also an NBA ref as well, so just want to give her a good shout out.
And the Knicks are actually looking at a coach. More confetti going off in the first round studios. And thank you very much. The Knicks are actually looking at hiring a female coach to come in and take over operations at head coach position in the NBA. That would be great. This music means only one thing. It's time to thank our support staff on a birthday celebration. Happy birthday to Ray Boom Boom Mancini. September 15th was your birthday. Today's mine. We like to throw shout outs to everybody that has joined us in the first round studios.
What's up, Ray?
Ray Boom Boom on the board. Thank you for your job. Awesome job today with the confetti and everything else. The man on my left, Chris Roberts, here in the St. Jude Studios. El Presidente, Chet 40, as we try and pull it together at the end of the show. Thanks for all our supporters on Twitter at TheFirstRound1. Reach us here at thefirstraundrd@gmail.com. Comments and questions. We will be right back here Wednesday night. Until then, take care, everybody.